Hey everybody, Nick Licameli here on Feel Good Friday. Today, I'm going to show you my favorite way to stretch the hip flexors. Now, I've done videos on this in the past, and I showed it in a half kneeling position, but sometimes that half kneeling position just doesn't feel right. But this is a version that I've kind of modified to really stretch those hip flexors out. And again, when I say stretch, we're not holding these stretches for 30 seconds to a minute to try to improve the length of the muscle. We are trying to use reciprocal inhibition by squeezing the opposite muscle, which are the glutes, in order to decrease some tone in the hip flexors. So I'm holding these for about 10 seconds as I'm squeezing my glute to decrease tone in the hip flexors. I'll link my previous videos on a proper hip flexor stretch and reciprocal inhibition down below. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy. So this stretch is going to start on the floor. We're going to put that left knee up forward, and that right leg is going to stretch back, keeping that right knee on the floor. We'll get to that in a second. As we squeeze that right glute, again, that's going to help that right hip flexor relax through reciprocal inhibition. Squeezing that glute also is going to put us in a slight posterior pelvic tilt, which is going to further stretch that hip flexor because those hip flexors want to pull us into an anterior pelvic tilt. As with any stretch, we are always incorporating deep breathing and proper neck and spinal posture. Now we switch to the other side, and we're going to squeeze that left glute, and we're stretching that left hip flexor. I'm also laterally flexing my spine a little bit to the right, so a little bit to the opposite side of the hip flexor that's being stretched. That's going to further stretch that muscle because those hip flexors also attach to your spine. So I mentioned before we're going to keep that knee down on the ground on the side of the hip flexor that we're stretching. Here's why. If we lift it up like that and straighten it out, what's happening is our quads are contracting to hold our knee and our leg straight like that. And our quads, particularly the rectus femoris, cross the hip joint and are in fact hip flexors. So if we're contracting that quad and trying to stretch our hip flexors, we're kind of fighting a losing battle because that quad is not able to relax and get stretched. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.